Welcome once again to the Win Again Clubroom. I'm super excited to have you all here. My name is Mark Moyer, and I'm hosting a fantastic event tonight. And we're talking about dugout mugs, but more specifically, I want to really bring in these gentlemen about really what inspired Randall to, inspired him to want to do this and really get it going, and how Kris has really helped also launch this thing and really head towards that and pass that $30 million in sales, which is remarkable. So I'm going to bring each of you in right now, and then I'm going to let each of you do a quick little, because I actually appreciated your bios on your websites, which really pretty much said nothing about you guys. Just it was more goofy than anything else, but I appreciated that. So Kris, I'm inviting you in, and then Randall, you're next. Here we go. Hey, Kris. I'm going to start with Randall. Randall, do me a favor. Tell me a little bit about. I knew you grew up in the Orlando area. You played baseball throughout your youth and so forth. But tell me a little bit about when you knew that baseball could be a career for you. At what point did it just sort of sink in? Wow, you know what? This could be my thing.
Not until college baseball. I was a late bloomer. I played 3 years of junior varsity baseball, and then I finally made the varsity team as a senior. And then I had one walk-on opportunity at a D2 school, and I went to it and ended up becoming scholarship athlete. And then I ended up getting signed by the Blue Jays. So I didn't really realize that I was actually good enough to play professionally until probably my sophomore year in college, just because I was such a late bloomer.
But you know what? That baseball is actually a sport where that does happen fairly frequently. It's whether it's the skill set kicking in or your size kicking in as a high schooler and that sort of thing. But that makes perfect sense. So, Randall, we're going to jump back to you in a second. But Kris, tell me about you grew up in Florida as well. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now tell me a little bit about, were you much of an athlete yourself growing up, or what was your big passion as a kid, teenager?
I mean, I played sports. I'm an athletic guy. I'm a big dude, but athletic. So I played baseball. I played golf. I blew out my knees, my one knee in high school doing weightlifting. So that kind of really limited what I could do. But my sport, I laugh about it, but my sport's business, people. I'm really good with people, always have been. And what I was passionate about was just hustle and grit and, making money and proving people wrong, because I didn't come from a lot of money. And so for a while, sometimes it was billiards, sometimes it was cards, sometimes it was just something as gritty as like getting raw metal and cutting the copper out. And I mean, just whatever it could get done. I stayed busy being gritty, and I started companies, and I was buying and selling candy and just whatever I could get into, like as a kid coming up. But then, that always excited me. And by 21, by the time I was even 21 years old, I was already the general manager of a Gold's Gym. And I had 50 employees at 21 years old. So I got kind of thrust into that. College, I was going to college for a second for massage therapy. And then the idea of rubbing on gross people, I just wasn't going to have that. And I said, well, I better figure something else out. And I really like people and I can really sell. So I'm just going to go over here and sell stuff at a gym. And actually that was a big chunk of my career. I met my first mentor there, who owned the club. And he kind of helped me just look at things a little bit differently. And to this day, we say something, we're unapologetically authentic. That's something I really dig. And Dave was the one that kind of allowed me to do that. He let me run the gym my way. I mean, I was bringing in, dump trucks full of sand and building beaches in the gym so that we could do luau party membership parties. He let me get really outside the box, and more times than not, it was a success. And I was like, cool, I get to do things my way and still win, and that's kind of how I got started.
Well, it's interesting. Being a successful entrepreneur is very much like being a successful athlete. You're absolutely right. I mean, the scramble and the grit and the the constant chase to be better, to be 1% better, it exhibits everything that an athlete has, for sure. So as far as I'm concerned, you're absolutely right. You are by being a professional business person or salesperson, you are a professional athlete. So congratulations.
See, Randall, I told you I'm a professional athlete.
Randall's like, why? Just because Mark says. So Randall, so you played baseball. You were signed by the Jays. Did you actually get was that contract and you got a check and so forth? But then tell me a little bit about what happened over the next couple of years with your career.
Well, actually, I signed for $0. I don't know if that ever really happens, but
that's a record.
I pretty much I showed up and they reimbursed me for my gas, and that's not a joke. So I drove from Orlando to Dunedin, and I think they gave me I don't think gas prices were quite like they are right now, but I think they gave me $45, and yeah, I mean, one of the biggest blessings in my life is I was out of professional baseball before I was really in it, and the truth is that a lot of guys spend a lot of time in the minor leagues, and they get this taste of hope that they're going to get to the big league level, and then they can't let that go. At the time, it really sucked. I showed up, I played a short season, and then I went through extended spring training, and then they released me out of extended spring training. And at the time, it sucked. I felt like I got, I got stiffed. It was short-sighted, but it ended up becoming one of the bigger blessings of my life because it helped me move on quicker and get closer to what I was actually supposed to be doing.
And so when you say you got cut and so forth, so what did you just decide at that point, I'm done, or was there an injury that helped that decision, or what happened?
No, not really. I had a few opportunities to go play independent baseball after I got released. And I mean, the realities of professional baseball is it's really, really monotonous. It's really, really boring. The boredom got to me before anything else got to me, to the point that I was trying to learn magic. I was living in a hotel with another dude, and I was like, I got to figure out a way to pass the time. And I was trying to learn how to do magic. That's how bored I was. So I had a couple opportunities to play independent baseball that wasn't affiliated with Major League Baseball. And I just turned them down, and I just said, I'm gonna go get a job. I don't want to do this.
So, I read the story, but I maybe if you could tell the folks here, then, what was that moment that you said, wait a second, ding, Dugout mugs, although back then it was Thompson mugs. But tell me a little bit about how that developed.
Yeah. I got released. I had a couple jobs, kind of bounced around, realized I wanted to get back into baseball. I think a lot of people, when they get out of sports, they say, well, I didn't really need that sport to identify with anyways. And they completely try to they try to keep an arm's length from it. And that was my default. I didn't hate it, but I just didn't want to be around it, or I didn't want to be identified by it. And eventually I said, okay, I don't like this idea anymore. And I wanted to coach. So I went back, I coached college baseball, and the hitting coach was cutting baseball bats in half in the dugout, taking a handsaw, cutting them in half, wooden bats. And I saw just a bunch of loose bat barrels just sitting in the dugout. And there's a natural cupping to baseball bats. And I kind of just looked at it and I said, I wonder if that cupping could just keep going down. And could you turn a bat barrel into a pretty cool mug? And I threw it in my back pocket, and I didn't really start pursuing it until maybe a year or 18 months after I had the idea.
And now, why was he cutting the barrel? Why was he doing that?
He was creating
bats. Or were they cracked bats originally, or whatever it was?
No, they're normal bats. He was creating a training tool, something he called a short bat, and he was just creating those for his hitters to be able to use.
Interesting. All right, good. So his I guess innovation or something led to your innovation. That's fantastic. So tell me a little bit, Kris. So how did you two meet? Tell me a little bit about
that. So I've had a handful of projects and businesses and ventures along the way. post Gold's Gym, and some of them were documented, and I've had some success. And Randall was, we lived somewhat close proximity. He was St. Pete, I was Tampa, and we ran into each other in a Facebook group. Well, actually, you ran across me in a Facebook group for ex-baseball players, which obviously I'm not. So why I was there, I still to this day don't know. Maybe it's just a little bit of fate, right? And you were looking to, he was looking to pick somebody's brain on how to take this product a little bit further, a little bit faster. And he reached out, and we, had a couple similar interests, the country music concert that was coming up and some other stuff. And, one thing led to another, and a conversation turned into a meeting. And he brought, I actually was looking at it earlier. It's the first mug right here. He brought this, and he's like, just walk around with it and see what happens. And he did. And I did. And I walked around with it, and everybody was freaking out. Like, where can I get one? I said, okay, well, maybe this kid's onto something. And I was like, well, I've been praying about put somebody in my path and, give me a cool, fun project that I can leverage my network and my skill set. And then, out of the blue, I get a phone call and a direct message on Facebook. So, that's kind of how we connected, was just a little bit of random fate, I think.
And so Randall, what was it about Kris that made you say, you know what, he's the guy, or he's the partner?
Yeah, when I was like Kris was saying, I came across him in a Facebook group, did some research on him, saw that he sold millions of dollars of stuff online, and this was in 2016, and I thought that pretty clearly the way that we were going to be able to sell it is online. So I was really interested in learning more about selling shit online. And so when I saw how much sales Kris has done online, I said, okay, well, this might be a good guy to, sorry, I got a plane going overhead here. This might be a good guy to try to figure out how to do this. Mm-hmm. And then we just kind of talked more and more, and he showed interest in the actual product. And, I didn't really have anything to lose. I was 6 months into it with $70,000 of sales. And then we teamed up, and yeah, it just seemed like a no-brainer.
So one thing I'm curious about that maybe you can both educate me on is, a lot of times I'll see an episode on Shark Tank where they'll say, well, do you have the patent on this? Do you have it? Is this proprietary? So conceptually, I suppose anybody can cut off a bat and drill it down and sell it, I suppose. But can they? Or tell me a little bit about how you're protected. How's the IP protected and so forth?
Yeah, there's 3 different types of patents. We have a design patent on the mug, and then we have a design patent on our shot glasses, a couple other design patents. We take the knob of a baseball bat and turn it into a shot glass. Really, I was talking to Frederick about this. He has a patent, and he's an inventor. It really, patent law is just, it really comes down to who has the most money. And that's pretty much what protects the design, especially a design patent. Utility patents are more complex and more protectable, and you can fight and protect them. Design patents, somebody could change the taper of the mug, and they're technically not infringing anymore. And it really just comes down to who has the most firepower for patent dollars, or patent attorney dollars.
Got it.
But speed to market as well,
right.
Yeah.
Well, that was a decision we made pretty early. Most law and most lawsuits it's just who's got the most money. Randall, I remember when we had this conversation, this is back in 2017. It's like, do we want to play to win, or do we want to play to not lose? You remember that? And the decision was the latter. We're going to play to not lose. And that's going on crazy offense. And that's, speed to market. That's being, gritty. That's being tough. That's being smart. It's moving fast. It's, putting your money where your mouth is. When MLB says, oh, hey, you can get a license, but it's a guaranteed royalty of $200,000. and they think they slapped you in the face. And I said, send me the contract. Let's go. Let's fucking go. And because you have that aggression and because you stay on the offense and because you play to win instead of play to not lose, we won. And there's people that have come into the Lions Den. They never come out because they can't handle it. They're not built for this. And, so there's people that have tried to rip us off, and that's okay. It's somewhat complicated, complimenting, somewhat complicating and somewhat annoying, but, we just crush them. And every time we do that, it just makes us stronger. And we have a lock on this market, without a doubt, internationally. And we're going to continue to drive in that fashion.
Well, that's the thing. It's also name recognition. There's so many other ways to control the market that even if somebody from God knows where decides to try to compete, it almost doesn't matter. And in fact, if anything, it may drive more sales your way because more people are becoming aware of it, and they want to come back to the original, the Dugout mugs, right? So I think it's interesting.
There's a couple unique pieces. We're the only one that's licensed by Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And Major League Baseball, they're not going to cause us a problem. We're putting big chunks of money in their bank. They're not going to bring somebody else into our field. Right. Major League Baseball Players Association, Hall of Fame, minor league baseball. Like, we got these things locked up. And you're right. And then now there is another piece of intellectual property that I think we're getting exponentially closer to than we originally were, and that's trade dress. The Who Made It Famous, right? When you line up 1,000 people and you show them a bat mug, and the vast majority is like, oh, that's a Dugout mug. I know what that is. That's a Dugout mug, right? That's us making it famous. So I think the trade dress is the other piece of this that we're getting very close to.
No, and look, I think I forgot which one of you we were talking about this, but I was asking if you're considering branching out into other types of sports or other things. And I think though right now you've captured such an incredible niche, and you can just absolutely crush it, that maybe getting involved in other types of items might dilute what you're doing with baseball. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
That was a conversation we had originally, and we'll worry about other sports when we stop selling mugs, is really kind of where our head is with it. We've just scratched the surface. And though we have a lot of traction, I'd say, Randall, you'd probably agree with me, 80% of the people in the baseball world has never even heard of us still. So there's a lot of icebergs still under the water. We're just scratching the top.
How do you get to them?
We're working on it. Right. And I think that's part of the marketing strategy. Right. It's multiple channels. For me, it was kind of like proof of concept, right? Don't be scared to take a dog out back and shoot it. Right. And so we needed to prove this concept first and foremost. And we did that. And we, starting early, we were collecting data. We were leveraging that data, customers, emails, sending them surveys, asking questions. What's going right? What's going wrong? What do we need to do different? And just, continually improving and coming up with the next iteration of what we're doing. So how do we get to them? We started out by proving our concept and perfecting, if you will, our product. And then we just started hitting the gas, and we've got, which is, I'm still looking. We have 32,000 5-star reviews online, or a little over that. I can't find a company out there that has that. 32,000 is a lot of reviews. A lot of people like our stuff. So it means what we're doing is relevant. Now we kind of did, I like to call it reverse wholesale. So we've proven the concept. So now you can't go to like a Dick's Sporting Goods or somewhere like that and say, hey, try our product. They're like, yeah, we would, but we're not sure if people are going to like it. We've now taken down that barrier. And now we are in Dick's. We are in Shields. We are in Rally House. We are in, we're talking to Home Goods and Target and a lot of these other spots, because now we've proven the concept. So how do we get to those people? One, it's going to be branding and brand awareness. And we're going to do that through big box, small box, mom and pop gift shops, the wholesale side of our company. The other piece that I was talking about in one of the breakout rooms is corporate gifting. I think there's a real big play for corporate gifting. We make mugs currently for Budweiser, Coors, Miller, DraftKings, Loan Depot, Celsius, Coke, banks and electric companies. So I think that's another vertical. So I think it's a multifaceted approach while never really taking the gas off of the e-com. We're not going to be able to exponentially scale it like we have been, but if we can just keep it at idle, 10 million or so a year, and then really start developing these other verticals, and then maybe get to 10 million per, and now we're bringing in 20 to 25, 30 million a year. That's a whole different ball game. And I think we're going to get to people a lot faster. And then lastly, and I mentioned this in a breakout, we also are talking about having, and we talked about this initially, Mark, is having a biz ops style component to our company where we pick people that want to be a distributor of Dugout mugs, and we put 2 to 3 to 5 people in more condensed baseball areas, and they go out to the Saturday markets, and they go out to the baseball tournaments, and they do these types of things. So that more of a grassroots approach combined with these other verticals, I think it's only a matter of time.
Well, but look, I also think that you could, and then Randall, this is something you guys can do on the baseball, the athletes side. You could be reaching out to, hundreds of retired athletes who may have connections on the, you mentioned earlier, the corporate side of things, and they could be going to their local market, the different companies there, and just start banging out sales to those. And as you said, with a distributorship or whatever it might be. So you're right, that whole thing is. I mean, I was just thinking, if you were in Buffalo Wild Wings at every location where everybody could get a Buffalo Wild Wing, dugout mug, that'd be insane. I think.
Yeah. And again, we don't really have to sell our product, right?
Yeah.
We just need to tell people about it. It sells itself. And that's the cool part. So we just need more people telling the story, more places. And then when people go to do their due diligence online, and look us up and about the company, about our story, about our tribe, about our vibe, it's a done deal.
And I'll add to that is, I think, so this is the original product of turning a wooden barrel of a baseball bat into a drinking mug. This sits on a shelf, or it gets taken out at home and people pour into it and watch like a World Series game or a playoff game. It's very much a game day mug. It's very much you're having people come over and you're socializing, and you take it out and giggles happen, and people love it. I think the more distribution that we get of our new 20-ounce tumbler, this isn't so stationary. People are going to travel to baseball parks with it. They're going to use them in dugouts, and so there's already something crazy that goes on with this. Everybody wants to know where you got it, and we call it the dugout mug effect. But the problem is that it sits so stationary. And so really the only time that people get word of mouth or see this is when they come over to people's houses and they see it. What's going to end up happening, I think, is the more we distribute these, the 20-ounce tumbler, and the mom is sitting in the stands drinking from it. And there's this whole culture of baseball moms that of what's in your cup, because moms are drinking White Claws at these tournaments. Yeah. And the more it happens that moms are drinking out of these, or dads are drinking coffee while driving to the tournament or a weekend series, or little Johnny's drinking from it in a dugout, the more people are going to start asking questions, and I think it's going to grow us much quicker.
That's great. So what are those tumblers made of? Are they aluminum bats then, or
stainless steel? No, they're just shaped to replicate like a barrel of a baseball bat.
Gotcha. That's awesome. And does it make? I shouldn't even ask this, but does it make any sense to create a handle on the wooden one somehow, or not really? Or does that go against the?
Yeah, we've kicked around an idea of putting a handle on it in a way that it's non-permanent. When I was first thinking of this idea, I thought everybody said, "Hey, put a base on it." Everybody said, "Hey, put a handle on it." What's so beautiful about this is, one, I think it's super cool that you're just drinking from the barrel of a baseball bat.
Sure. Yeah.
And two, never discredit the simplicity of manufacturing. There's already so many different moving pieces that go on in a business. if every single one of these that we got, we also had to put a handle on it or we had to put a base on it, it just complicates the hell out of things even more. So twofold, I think it's super cool just drinking straight from the barrel of a baseball bat.
Yeah.
Adding a base or adding a handle, I feel like it takes something that's super simple, super sleek, and kind of makes it more tchotchke. And then also just the manufacturing aspect of it is like, I don't want more moving pieces in the manufacturing side of things. Let's just keep it as simple as possible.
Well, and that's been that's actually a good point, right? Do fewer things. You're trying to walk away with nuggets. Like that's one of the things that we did fewer things better, right? And then once you have that dialed in, then you start to make additions. And that's when we had one mug, and then we have a wine mug, and then we have a shot. We didn't launch all these at the same time, right? I think that's important for anybody coming up and trying to launch a venture or just in business in general. Do fewer things better and become an expert. Like this was our flagship product. And then once we had $10 million in sales, or maybe 6 to 8, like then we started venturing into other things.
Well, it's interesting
because of the sleek and the simplicity, right? We have 10 people running like a machine, cranking these things out. Like, don't throw curveballs at them.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I like to use a restaurant analogy where if you go to a diner sometimes, especially here in New York, there's about 30 pages of the menu. They've got everything every possible type of dish imaginable. And there's another restaurant here in New York. It's called Meat and Lobster, I think, where they literally, you either get a burger or a lobster, and they crush it. They're jammed every single night. And imagine
they make good burgers and good lobster.
Yeah, exactly. So
right.
I think it's fantastic what you're talking about. The only thing I was design-wise, I was thinking, well, what if you put the knob on the side of that somehow? It could be a bit of a handle, but forget it. That's why I'm not doing that.
Well, but that's also everybody's got an idea because what they see is they more times than I can even count.
Yeah.
Oh man, what I would have thought about that, right? It's the same thing, or the second most asked question is, when are you guys going to go into football, right? It's everybody's trying because it's the curiosity, right? It's and again, like in business. So one thing I've learned over having multiple companies over the years, no is one of the best words you can learn. And it's like, hey, what about this? No. So Randall and I have we have a lot of fun. Like if y'all haven't figured that out. And we say, if it's not a hell no, it's a hell yeah. There's not a lot of waffling going on. He brings an idea to the table. I'm like, yeah, I think it's kind of stupid, but it ain't a hell no, which means hell yeah, give it a go. Or something comes to the table. I'm like, dude, hell no. Or he comes, I bring something to the table. He's like, Kris, come on, bro. But that's what it is. You got to learn how to say no in business because it keeps things simple, it keeps them streamlined, and it keeps you focused. And again, these new iterations. What if you did this? What if you did that? If we did that, we would not be as successful. Is the true answer. You need to stay focused, stay lean, stay sleek.
And this is fantastic business advice it doesn't even matter what you're doing. And the same thing happens with me, where oftentimes I get, actually all day long, I get approached by people that want me to do this, want me to do that. And it's sometimes it's challenging to deflect, but it has to be done. And I'm still probably involved in too many things, but I still think there are a lot of things that I have to deflect every day. So that's fantastic. So
let me add on to that if you don't mind.
Yeah. Please.
So a good friend of mine, Jason, mentioned something one time. He said, it's not what it'll make you, it's what it'll cost you. And when it comes to business, and that was so I nearly died like 6.5, 7 years ago because I was so busy being so busy. I didn't even go to the hospital on a rupture of my appendix, right? I was so busy. And I think over these last, handful of years, I've created some boxes that need to be checked. So when something lands on my plate, and I encourage everybody I'll ever speak to do this, and it's create your own set of metrics, your own boxes that must be checked before you move forward. And mine are, can I have fun? Can I play with my friends? Is it scalable? Is it experiential? Does it take time away from my family? Like, and like a few down the road here, it's how much money can we make? Because money, in my opinion, is a result of doing all these other things that are in line with you consistently. So that kind of touches on the no thing, and it kind of touches on the, how to deflect. Well, the best way to deflect is to create your very specific boxes that must be checked before you even take a phone call with somebody. Opportunities everywhere, but if you are running in the wrong direction, you're still going in a direction, but it's taking you further away from where you're actually trying to be. So these check boxes will help keep you, your navigation on, if that makes sense.
Of course. Yeah, that's fantastic. Before we go much further, just a quick thing to point out. There's 3 sections on your right side there. There's chat, participants, and Q&A. If you do have any questions at all, please throw them in the Q&A section there. And Jessica has the first one. I'm going to go ahead and read it out to you. What has been your biggest win so far this year?
I'll let you go first, Randall.
Yeah.
Biggest win, I would say probably the PO from Fanatics.
Oh, nice.
And the PO from Dick's. We got Dick's and Fanatics in like 90 days of each other.
Yeah, just in general. I mean, I would say probably the wholesale side of things is probably the biggest win. We've already surpassed what we did last year in wholesale and halfway through the year, and we kind of made a decision that that's our biggest opportunity for growth. And I would say that's probably the biggest win, is that we've already surpassed last year's wholesale numbers halfway through the year.
This win this year was our failure, because you don't learn a lot when you're winning. And this is the first year we've faced adversity from a paid advertising perspective. And I think what it did is it forced us to get deeper into our numbers and identify where the holes in the bucket were, that up until this point, like if you're in a 10-foot swimming pool, you can't identify those holes at the bottom. You don't know where they are, too far away from them. You just know you're swimming, right? You're having a good old time. But now, like when you're swimming in a bucket, you're like, oh shit, there's a hole, there's a hole, there's a hole. So I truthfully think our biggest win so far is being as versatile and fluid as we are, to identify why we lost as fast as we did in the areas we were losing, so that we can fix them, so that when all this momentum recorrects and we add these additional verticals of traffic and sales, it's going to pop. That's what I think. And I think that's admirable. If I saw another company that identified the mistakes and the problems and fixed them within a 90 to 120 day window, that's speed in my mind. That's like
great.
We're driving a cruise ship, but we're turning it like a ski boat.
That's impressive. Anonymous has a fantastic question, but I'll go ahead and ask it. So Anonymous wants to know, what are some of the goals that, I mean, you've already crushed a few of them, it sounds like, but where do you, looking towards the holidays, I guess even, is it something where you've got a sort of numerical goals, or is it more like, gee, I'd love to conquer blank? Give me a couple of those that you'd love to nail.
This year, or just like for the life
sure.
of the company, or
no, this year? Let's say this year, next few months.
This year, I mean, nothing's popping up in my head that's like a pressing goal, and
I'll throw some in there. Diversification. We were a one-trick pony because we were damn good at direct to consumer. Okay. Yeah. And I mean, to put up $30 million on the scoreboard, that's big from a direct to consumer brand. And I think one of my goals for 2022 is diversification, have multiple streams of income. It's always an ideal strategy. And for us to do that as a business, I think what'll really blow your mind is we have one sales guy for a whole company, one. And I would love to see that team develop and let him lead that team by the end of the year. And I have for a wholesale, I want to be in 1,000 doors, 1,000 retail doors, which we are well on track to hit. By the end of this year, I want to be in 1,000 retail doors. And from a 30,000 foot view, I want to have a conversation with a legitimate player like a Yeti, a Tervis, a Fanatics, or something like that about an acquisition. I want to have a meaningful conversation well into 8 figures on what that looks like. I probably will turn it down because I don't think we're in the place where we want to sell yet, but I want to have that because it's validating, and I want to I want us to be on those radars. So those are a couple of goals that I have.
You should be, but it may not even come from a company like that. It may come from something completely different that wants to jump in
VC group wants to slide in, and and again, I want to continue to build this company. We want to continue to build this company so that is attractive for an acquisition. Like there's a reason. I mean, our number one goal every year is to collect more customers, because once they get into our world and they get into the Dugout, it's such a cool experience. It's a cool product. It's amazing customer service, like everything. We need the customer. We need the data because we know what to do with it when we get it. Emails and SMS and marketing and remarketing and things like that. So I want to continue to drive. I'd like to see, 600,000, maybe 650,000 customers by the end of this year.
Well, look, Fanatics has been inhaling everything in its sight, so maybe they'll spin around and
we're on their radar. I talked to the CEO of Tervis, and he's very well aware, and he congratulated us, like, I'm watching, I'm seeing what you guys are doing. I spoke with the VP of hard goods at Fanatics. He just sold their company Windcraft for $500 million. So I had multiple conversations with him. The VP of hard goods reached out to me today. So we're on the radar, right? It's humbling. It's really cool to know that we did it our way, which is big. That's important. And I know, Randall, you do. That's one of the things that we see so eye to eye on. We made the first million in flip-flops, right? You made that statement one time, but we made the first 30 million in flip-flops because we're able to do this our way. And I think that having that kind of authenticity lacks majorly in business. And I think everybody's constantly trying to make themselves into this fucking avatar that they think everybody wants to do business with. That ain't it. They want real, cool, good people that do what they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do it and execute, and I think we've built this company like that. But yeah, anyway.
Now, are you, right now, is it helpful to have, are you looking for investment? I mean, do you raise funds to be able to scale bigger? Or are you guys pretty well set there? What's the appetite?
I'll let you answer that one, Randall, if you want to. I mean,
it's just
you're always looking for money into people, but
yeah, it's just case by case.
Yeah,
not necessarily, but
and if there's money, it's got to be smart money. And I always say you're always looking for more money and better people. You're always doing that.
Yeah.
If you're not, you're missing something. But we've been self-funded pretty much from the jump. It's been kind of cool.
That's fantastic. Congratulations on that. Laura has a great question here. She says, when you think about the business, what keeps you up at night? Randall?
How long is this segment? Yeah. My default is to worry. Yeah, but I think it's motivational. I don't know. I mean, all sorts of stuff. I feel like over the years I've developed more and more of a healthy amount of fear. But what keeps me? I kind of default into all sorts of stupid shit that I try to shake off. But also, the answer is too long. All sorts of stuff makes me toss and turn.
Well, but
keeping me up at night is my 2-year-old.
Yeah,
I'm disgustingly optimistic, and I'm sure it's annoying to my partner at times, but I'm really, really optimistic on most things because I think it keeps me driven, and it keeps, helps me keep my eyes where we're going rather than stopping to, and it's not saying it's perfect, right? Because there's a really cool dynamic here. If I'm constantly like the whole house is burning down and I'm just staring at the window, kind of thing. But I think we got a good dynamic between the two of us.
it's interesting you say that because I'm similar, Kris, in the sense that I'm always convinced that shit will work itself out. I'm always convinced that things, obstacles happen to, improve what you're doing and that sort of thing. And so I tend to sleep very well with the confidence that what I'm doing and so forth is going to crush it and continue crushing and so forth. So I think but you're right. It's also healthy to have Randall worry about stuff too, because I definitely need hey Randall, I need you have a twin brother somewhere to be in my business to, stay up at night, something like that. But
No.
I think it's fantastic because Dahlia just asked, conversely to Laura's question, so I don't need to ask you this, Kris, then I'll ask Randall, what excites you most about the business?
Oh, what excites the kind of the sad thing is that as I reflect on it, I go, have I really enjoyed this? Because Kris knows this about me. I have a really hard time reflecting on stuff that's happened because I feel like I'm very much in it. The analogy that I use a lot is like you can't read the label if you're in the bottle. And I feel like very much I'm in the bottle. What excites me the most about the future of the business? Hopefully we continue to find scale and it creates a certain income that I can provide for my family for a life much better than I had when I was growing up. That's probably the thing that excites me and motivates me the most is being able to provide a better life for my family than I had when I was a kid.
Well, look, and one thing you should not take lightly, Randall and Kris, is the legacy that you're carving out for yourselves, because it's it's one thing that when I wrote my book and I looked at the book and I was like, holy crap, I actually wrote this. This is a book. I wrote this thing. And I said to myself at that point, even if 0 people read it, it's my legacy. It still exists. It's something I've created. And with what you guys are doing here, there are so many people on this planet now that own that thing that you created. And it's you guys did this and not somebody else. And, I think that's, sometimes when I work with some of the athletes and some of the executives and something that I do or say is a sort of a life-changing moment for them, I get really excited because when I see them succeed afterwards, part of the ego says, wow, that was part of what it's justification for all the challenges and the pain and everything else that goes into a lot of this stuff. So I think, Randall, when you were saying, there's a lot of stuff that keeps you up at night, but remind yourself that there's so many positive things that have come out of this, that people are enjoying owning that piece. It's a talking point. They laugh about it. Whatever it is, they clank them together and they cheers. And it's because of what you did. And there's, every once in a while when you start, worrying about something or panicking, freaking out, just remind yourself, man, I'm doing something that's really amazing.
Yeah. That is a thought that I had the other night, is that something cool about this is that I feel as if that as long as baseball exists, a barrel of a baseball bat drinking mug is going to exist. Why wouldn't it? Whether it's somebody gifting it or it's a coach's gift or for whatever reason, there's always going to be a market for something like this. And so I thought to myself, that is a pretty cool thing to reflect on.
Yeah. Well, some of the experiences, right? Like one of my boxes to check is experiences. Like presidents own our mug, governors own our mug, celebrities, athletes, continent or 7 countries. Every state, every stadium. 500,000 plus units in the market. Hundreds of people are supported by the people that work for us. Hundreds. I think I think not reflecting. I mean, you've even said it in the past, like when you're a baseball player, even if you're in like A ball, these are your big leagues. To not reflect on the fact that that's their big leagues, hindsight, you looking at that player, like in business, this is it. The journey is all that matters. So the experience, like I live an experiential life, and that's a choice and a commitment. And we've done something that allows us to live an experiential life and not permit ourselves to get outside of that and enjoy that and experience it, I think it'd be a mistake.
Yeah.
And that's so, and so for me, business, the sport of business is money. And that's where my mind always defaults to. I say, how can I continue to create this thing to create massive amounts of money? Because in my mind, that's how you win in business. Business is money. If you have a ton of profit, you've won the sport of business. And that's why my mind's always running. Is I'm always analytically thinking, how can this get tweaked, or this get tweaked, or this get tweaked? How can it produce more money? And one of Kris's metrics is experiential things. I don't like experiential things, so like that doesn't fill up my mug, so to speak. But figuring out how to make this thing produce massive amounts of profit, so I can help my family, and then I can go out and I can do things and help people that I'm passionate about in certain areas. That's what I'm interested by, and that's what kind of just continues to run through my mind.
You know what? Tell me about that, Randall. You just mentioned what are some of the things you're passionate about in terms of helping people?
So outside of like my cats, my wife, and my business, I don't really have an over amount of passions. I'm incredibly focused on what I'm doing. I love my business. If I'm not doing something in my business, I'm hanging out with my wife, and if I'm not hanging out with my wife, I'm hanging out with my cats. Sounds like a pretty like boring life, but it's what I love to do. At some point in my life, when the business doesn't consume so much of me, I would love to help transitioning athletes. It's always been on my radar of things, of just knowing how difficult it can be to be identified as an athlete your whole entire life, and then it just being taken away one day, and you're spun around and you have no idea what to do. And then I also, for whatever reason, feel just drawn to helping kids with cancer. Never done it, but I feel like that's like the most unfortunate thing in life, really. Something that's just so uncontrollable and just so helpless is these kids that kind of just show up into the world and they have cancer. I'd love to be able to help in whatever way I could in that avenue of life.
So obviously I'm passionate about the whole concept of helping athletes transition and so forth, but you know what's interesting is that there are a lot of not a former athlete, but an ex-athlete like yourself who, sometimes I'll say, look, you're a fantastic role model. And people may say, well, no, I'm not. When I came out of my sport, I really struggled. I didn't know what to do. All this kind of stuff. And I say, but it doesn't matter. We all have journeys. We all have, you were saying this earlier, Kris, about journey, but we all have scenarios where we've all struggled at several points of our careers. And, so it's perfectly normal. And I think that, Randall, is the more you can get your story out there overall, whether it's throwing just a couple things on LinkedIn where you just do a post saying, it was 2014 and I didn't know what the hell, blah, blah, blah. And I was down on my luck and whatever it is. But once I did this blank, then the sky's the limit for everybody. I'm happy to talk to any, athletes going through a similar thing. I think you're going to find that the engagement will be incredible, and it really, again, I know this is taking all your time and so forth, but I also think that just throwing a few words out there could mean a ton for some of these guys that are going through some of the struggles. Because, there are countless athletes of every type of background that are struggling, for sure.
Yeah, and it might squeeze a little bit of reflection out of me, which would be
well.
Good.
It'll pull you out of the place, and you'll realize how much impact you have on so many already.
Yeah,
and that's a lot of reward. Like I remember, it's probably put away in my desk, but I wrote down 16 years ago, I started my first company. It said, it doesn't matter how far or fast you fall. If you help enough people, you'll never hit the bottom. Right. And like, there's been plenty of up and down with what I've done over the years. And to know that I've helped hundreds of people, like make a better life for them and their family, like in shitty, dark moments, you think about that and you're like, dude, shut up and get up and keep going. Like and I've done that. I've helped school teachers stop teaching that they hated, and now they flipped 100 houses, 1,500 houses, like just crazy stuff, And so, Jim Carmella, it's just like, it's really cool to have these, be able to stop and reflect how powerful and impactful you've already been. It's neat. It's real neat.
Gentlemen, full speed ahead. I love you. Both your stories are fantastic, and I think you both complement each other so well. And I'm sure you figured that out already. But congrats on that. So super fast. If people want to reach out to you for whatever reasons, what are some of the best ways to do so?
Well, I'm gonna go real quick because my computer's about to die, but two, I promised my kids I'd come tuck them in. I got to do that, and I never lie. LinkedIn. You'll find me on LinkedIn. That's the only place I exist. My email is KD@Dugout I saw Jessica mention something about big supporters for joint ventures. We do JVs. If you got access and you got reach, we can have that conversation. We're spending a lot of money on advertising, so I'd rather reallocate it and give it to somebody who drives the sales for us. So JVs certainly make a lot of sense. You could just send it directly to me. We'll take a look. We'll have a talk. But I appreciate everybody, and I appreciate you having me on. And
of course, Kris.
Randall, I'll chat with you probably tomorrow, but I have got to rock and roll because I always do what I say.
Well, this is the perfect time to wrap things up. Gentlemen, I really appreciate your time. Randall, if you want to stick around and chat with some of the folks before you split, that'd be great.
Yeah.
But both of you have thanks again. Dugout Mugs is it's still on the climb. I love it. Love what you're doing. And thanks again. Have a great evening.
All right.
See you. All right.